Listen, if you want to know all about leadership, communication, and vision and how it all pertains to cybersecurity and creating an incredible community and platform where a lot of security professionals and leaders come to share their knowledge, then you definitely don't want to miss this incredible conversation with Chris Cochran, who is a co founder of the Hacker Valley Media Organization. I'm telling you right now, this guy drops all kinds of tips, tricks, gems to help you really establish yourself as a leader inside of cybersecurity and sharing the tips and tricks that him and Ron has implemented in creating successful careers that they have today. So with that, if you haven't done so already, go down below, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon because you definitely don't want to miss out on fire conversations just like this one ever again. All right, let's jump to the What up? What up? Welcome back. I am your host, Mr. Eddie Thomason. And this time I'm so excited to be here with you guys chatting today with an incredible individual who's added so much value to the cybersecurity space and everything that's happening because he is one of the co-founders of Hacker Valley Media, which if you guys don't know about that organization and what they've done to really change the game, you're definitely going to want to learn more about that. And I'm so thankful to have my guest on here today to talk about that origin story and what they're excited about moving forward. So before I geek out a little bit too much, let's go ahead and kick it over. Let them know who you are, my man, and what you're excited about.
Yeah, I'm Chris Cochran, and I'm excited about stories. Stories are what makes the world go around. It's what I live for. It's what I die for. So it's all about stories.
That's awesome. And stories, one of your origin story itself, Chris, is what we're going to dive into, right? And like how this whole thing of Hacker Valley Media and everything else came together. So I love that you're excited about stories because we're definitely going to dissect yours because I think it's a really unique one in itself. But before we
Cool. Yeah, let's dig right in.
perfect. But with that being said, we're big fans of origin stories too, right? You say you're a big, huge Marvel fan. Obviously, I'm a Marvel fan. So let us know, man. What's your origin story? How did you get into this crazy place called cybersecurity?
Yeah, so my origin starts in the Marine Corps. Sounds like Captain America a little bit. I'd always been interested in computers. I used to take computers apart and put them back together,
Mhm.
play around on the internet. But it wasn't until I joined the United States Marine Corps where like everything really began. I was at the National Security Agency doing technical intelligence,
Mhm.
and I eventually got to join United States Cyber Command as a contractor when it first stood up, and that's where I really started focusing on this thing called threat intelligence before people really called it that. And I had no idea that that was going to be like a large part of my career. I didn't think that that was going to be a skill set that was going to apply outside of anywhere other than the government. But lucky me, it ended up becoming one of the hottest things in cybersecurity for a while, and just took advantage of it. And I had a company standing up threat intel stuff. I've been all over different places doing threat intelligence, led security operations, and of course, Hacker Valley.
I love it, man. It's like a true humble beginnings, right? Coming from military, growing, not really knowing exactly what that was going to look like, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, but then having the opportunity to then transition into private sector and kind of apply what you learned in the military out here, right? Um,
Yep, yeah,
which I
exactly.
appreciate that, man. 100% appreciate your service. So,
Thank you.
but let's talk about this idea of Hacker Valley, right? Let me know the origin stories of that. Obviously, we by the time this episode comes out, I believe Ron's episode is already going to be out, right? And if you guys haven't learned that
Hmm.
or listened to that, you definitely want to go back and listen because he dropped some fire tips and
Yeah,
tricks about how to find the different um, tools and things you need within cybersecurity and identifying the right vendors. And they actually used your approach,
yeah,
Chris, right? So that which was dope. But
yeah. And I appreciate that.
absolutely. So talk about some of that origin story, man. Like how did Hacker Valley come about? What is the down and dirty on that?
Yeah, yeah. So that's a super interesting story. I guess my entire life I've always been like focused on like performance, getting better, practice, practice, practice. I was a dancer for a while. Obviously, being in the Marine Corps, you're constantly pushing your performance to the next level, and I took that with me. I was a competitive athlete for a long time, I take all this stuff with me and I put it to use in my career. How do I constantly get better? And for a lot of the time, it was just me by myself. I didn't have a lot of folks to hold me accountable. I didn't hold others accountable. It's just me kind of noodling on things on my own. And so I'd read books and I'd dive deep on certain subjects, and it would all be self contained. And then I got an opportunity to work at Netflix to do threat intelligence. And I had largely been on the East Coast. Ron and I had worked together at a prior company, and he was already over there. He was the only person I knew. So I reached out. I was like, hey, I'm going to be out there. Would love to chop it up with you. As luck would have it, my family wouldn't be able to come out there until much later into the summer because my kids are in school. And so when I got out there, I had about 2 months of corporate housing. And then so that means I had between 3 and 4 months unaccounted for. So whether I got an apartment on my own, or maybe I just, ask Ron, hey, do you have a spare bedroom? As luck would have it, he did. There was three of us or four of us all together in the house. And what was cool about that experience was it was a bunch of minority men, older in age. We weren't like college age or anything like that, like you would normally see in like one of those incubator houses. We were all focused on cybersecurity, but we're all focused on personal growth and development. So we would do things like on Wednesdays, we hired a yoga instructor to come to the house, take us through postures, improve ourselves. On Sundays, we would do things like breathing exercises. Ron would either hire a coach or he would take us through something that he learned. And we were constantly pushing each other, reading different books and having all these incredible conversations. And it really just dawned on me that this type of environment is super rare, especially for adults. There is no way in the world that if I didn't have this exact thing line up, that I would have had this experience because I have 3 kids. There's no way I'm just going to go somewhere for 3 months and hang out and get better. So I thought I was like, man, there's got to be a way to share this experience with other folks. And Ron had already been doing instructional videos for YouTube. And one day he said, hey, let's hop on the mic. So we hop on the mics and we had this interesting conversation about cybersecurity alchemy, which is taking something that is not valuable and turning it into things that are valuable. And lo and behold, we just continued to do that. And we said, we need to bring that energy from the house into everything that we do in Hacker Valley. And that's where the whole concept of, cybersecurity practitioners or mental athletes with no off season. So what are all the things on the fringes of cybersecurity that people need to know to be their best self? And it's funny because when you start to become your best self, just in your work, you just start to become a better person, period. You start to apply all these learnings like mindfulness and fitness and uh, uh, leadership, all these different things. You can apply that to your household, your life, your personal life. So yeah, that was the origin story of that. We did it for up to I guess about 3 years up until this point, and it's just grown. We've grown. We have additional shows. We've won some awards. We've got to speak to some incredible people, and now we create content full time, which is crazy.
Mm,
It's crazy to think about.
absolutely. You had a lot of incredible points there, Chris. Like a lot of incredible points, man.
I appreciate it.
um, but I gotta bring it back. I gotta bring it back to the at the very beginning. You were talking about accountability. You said you was just four
Hmm.
guys in like this shared living type of environment that held each other accountable, right? Held each other accountable to be
Yep.
great. And I love that you brought up at the end of the conversation, like at the end of the message you just shared, is having the ability to have the what you learned at work and in your career spills over to everything else,
Hmm.
right? Because here's what I learned:
Right.
success principles are universal, right? If you take the same
Yep.
things you're successful. Like for a lot of us, I know you say you were an athlete being a dancer. I was an athlete being a football player, right? So like for a long time, my entire identity was wrapped around being a football player. And I didn't necessarily know how to take my skill sets and my discipline that I learned in football and apply it to my job or apply it to my marriage or apply it to being a dad, right? Like and it's so applicable because all these things are cross related. But I'm coming back to this accountability piece because how important is it to have accountability partners, right? Especially inside of the cybersecurity space. How important is it to create or facilitate or be a part of a group of individuals who's always challenging themselves and challenging the status quo to be better?
I would say it's beyond important for most
Mm,
people. Sure, you might have that diamond in the rough that is just pretty much, hey, I just want to do this on my own. This is my space. This is my time. I don't really want to interact with other people. But I would say that those folks are in the minority. But in order to have this open dialogue, there's a little bit of vulnerability that has to happen, because not only you're letting out the good, but you're also letting out the bad, or the I don't knows, the, oh, I'm kind of weak in this area. So that accountability partner is really going to be there to help push you forward. Think about coaches, think about personal trainers. A lot of times they're there for accountability. Oh, you missing practice? Why are you missing practice? Oh, you missed a training session? Why are you missing a training session? Sometimes accountability is money, right? You know, I'm going to pay for this thing because I don't want to waste my money. So I know I'm going to do it because that's just not what I do. So when it comes to accountability and cybersecurity, it's super important because we learn so much together. Whenever we talk to each other about our learnings, maybe there are certain pathways, certain books, certain courses that we've taken. Maybe there's mistakes that we've made that we can bestow upon other people, and then they don't have to make go through the same challenges or struggles that we went through, and they can take that field or that specific genre within cybersecurity to the next level. So it's beyond important to have people that you can depend on, that allow that learning environment, because cybersecurity isn't always the best learning environment depending on who you have in your social circle. But having that learning environment is super important, but also the accountability as well.
absolutely. And you brought up a couple of different resources, right? Like, being a part of different communities, but also reading books. I always got to ask because I'm an avid reader. I feel like at this point, I probably read at least
Yep.
between, 1 to 3 books a month, right? So, what
There
what
you
are some
go.
of the books that you would recommend? I would say first for like the beginner guy, right? The guy that's like, man, I don't really know much about cybersecurity. I might got a little bit of an IT background, but I just want to learn about the
Hmm.
space. And then what are some books maybe that you would recommend to the leaders, right? The people who's been in cybersecurity, but they're trying to transition into like these leadership roles, like you and Ron have secured over your career.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I'll start with the leadership portion first, because what you find is the issue that people have when it comes to being in a new space isn't often the technical information that's missing. It's a lot of the soft skills, the emotional intelligence that might be missing. Being able to communicate, having empathy, different things like that is really where a lot of folks miss the boat, because we love to jump right into the tech, and then once we're in the tech, oh, we're golden, right? But not quite. When you make that pivot towards leadership, or you're leading a small team or a big team, there's a lot of other skills that you need to help kind of cultivate all along the way. Because one of the best things we can do in this, I mean, to your point about accountability partners and people to lean on, it's all about your network. Being able to not just pull from them, but actually have a back and forth with a network. Because if you try to go about it by yourself and you're just using books and things like that, you're going to miss the mark. But some of my favorite books are obviously on performance. One of my favorite books in the world is The Art of the Impossible by Stephen Kotler. Uh, Stephen Kotler, he's the foremost researcher on flow state. Flow state, for those that aren't, um, that don't understand what it is like when that feeling where time slips away when you're doing something, because you're so locked in, and your skill set and the challenge are in such alignment that things just kind of flow. You're clicking. That it's like just being in the groove, for lack of a better term. And so he wrote a few books, but his most recent book is The Art of the Impossible.
Mhm,
And he talks about big I impossible and little I impossible. Little I impossible is stuff that we haven't done as individuals, haven't done yet.
mhm,
But then there are folks that are big I impossible, like they're doing things that no one has ever done yet. You talk about like Simone Biles and stuff like
mhm,
that, doing some of the movements that she does that no one has ever done in the world. But that's one of my favorite books, because it gives you this almost like a framework for how do you perform to your utmost ability day after day after day, and then turn those little eyes into big eyes. So that's one of my favorite books. Another one of my favorite books in the world, but this is more on the EQ, more of that emotional intelligence stuff,
mhm.
is the book. Uh, and that escapes me. It's one of my favorite books in the world. It's How to Win Friends,
Yes, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
and Influence People.
Dale
Yeah.
Carnegie.
Yep. 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 Dale Carnegie, one of my favorite books in the world. And they ended up redoing it. So I read the original version, and then they ended up redoing it for the digital age. And honestly, you could read either one, and it would be useful. Honestly, it might be more useful to do the digital one, because it does talk about email correspondence and things like that. But it's life changing for anybody that's looking to really do anything in the professional realm.
It's funny that you brought up How to Win Friends and Influence People because I read that book at least once a year. At least once a year.
Yeah.
I come back to it every single time, and then I'll throw another one in there as a free bonus for people who's actually listening. I'll say you definitely want to get a hold of "Bringing Out the Best in People" by Alan Lloyd McGinnis.
Mm.
If you are looking to lead
Ooh.
teams, or maybe you've been put into a situation where you have to lead people and you don't feel as though you actually have that experience yet, or maybe you have an imposter syndrome, pick up Bringing Out the Best in People because that is by far. I read that at least once a quarter, actually.
Really? Okay. I'm gonna have to check
that's
that one
one.
out.
That's one of my favorite books to go back to because as you lead teams, you start to identify how to put people in the best situations for them to exceed. And if you do that for people, then by default the whole organization wins, right? Like a rising tide raises all ships. So that's one of my favorite books to add to that leadership piece of things.
Yeah, that's a good practice, because a lot of times what we do is we get really like centered around the mission, which is
Mhm.
good, but we tend to forget the individuals that are supporting that mission. And if you can find any type of alignment where someone's like superpower, their purpose is in alignment with the business
Mhm.
need, you can put that person in that position, and they're just going to take off like a rocket. But if you're just trying to like fill holes, it's kind of like a sinking ship. You know, it can work for a little bit, but you're going to run into problems in the long run.
I would love for you to tell me about some times, man. Obviously, you guys, Hacker Valley started out with it sounds like it's two people, right? Two people in the house that just had an
Hmm.
idea, put like, get on the mic, right? And now you guys have
Yep.
a full team of people that's doing things, accomplishing things, adding to the vision. What was that transition like, right? Like, well, how has things
Mm.
changed for you and your role from when you guys first started to where you are right now?
Yeah, I would say it's difficult because when it's just two people, it's easy to like have coverage over everything. Everything is in its right place. Everything is how we deemed it to be. But when you start to bring other people on, it's all about trusting them to make the best decisions. And sometimes they're going to make decisions even better than I do. Like from an editing perspective, we have a team of editors that's going to be really focused on making sure everything sounds right. Because we have 10 shows now instead of one show, it would be almost impossible for me to continue to do business development, to continue to do content if I was also doing the editing. And so sometimes you have to have that trust and say, okay, I got to hand this over because they are better at doing this thing than I am. And you slowly and surely, but do that over time. So whether you're talking about accounting, or you're talking about the website, or you're talking about anything from that perspective, all these things can be shared and delegated to other people. And what are the things that me as like Chris Cochran, what are the things that I need to be doing? So I'm really focused on vision, like what is the vision of Hacker Valley, where is it going, but then also the interactions with the guests, the customers, the sponsors that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, because I want to have that company where you can talk to the CEO because he is so ingrained in customer service and making sure that folks are getting the most out of their experience as possible. I don't want to be the CEO that you can never get a hold of. Will that scale? I mean, maybe depends on where we headed as a company, but I want to hold on to that as much as possible. So that's important to me.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that up because it's funny. I recently posted a post on LinkedIn that for the first time ever, I think I would assume this is considerable as a viral post. I mean, it's got like over 30,000 impressions and stuff. I was like, wow, LinkedIn, you
There
really
you
really
go.
did your thing right now. But only reason I'm bringing it up is not to stroke my own ego or anything at all, but it's to highlight your point. My CEO shared that post, right? Because
Mm,
we're a smaller company, and I can call Jay today and just be like, "Hey Jay, how's it going, man? Like, how's family and everything else?" And it won't be weird, it won't be awkward, right? And I love that
right.
that's the vision for Hacker Valley. It's like, man, like, no, although I'm CEO of this incredibly valuable business, right? This incredibly valuable entity, I'm still a human being, and I care about you, and I care
Mm-hmm.
about your family, and I care
Yep.
about your people, right? I think
Yep. 100%.
that's extremely impressive, my man, that you already have that vision of like this is how it needs to be as we continue to scale, because that's what continues to bring the right people towards you as well. um
I'm trying.
I love it. I love it. um so now let's take that, right? So let's take, the vision that you guys have, right? The vision that you have. I know we just came off of incredible. I don't know if that. I don't think that was last week. That may have been 2 weeks ago, where you guys got to you and Ron got a chance to interview Simone Biles, right?
Yep.
And got to talk about the partnership that you guys have with Exonius, with Simone and
Mm-hmm.
some of the. I know it's another athlete that's there, but it's also trying to incorporate other
Yeah. Amy
athletes.
Bream.
Amy Bream,
Yep.
right? I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Amy Bream.
Talk about that, man, because like I would assume that this was definitely not something that was on your radar when you guys were just two kids, well, not kids, but two adults sitting in the
Yeah.
house,
Right.
right? Thinking like, oh, well, one day we're gonna get to interview Simone Biles, right? Like, I definitely don't think that was on your radar.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that. Like, how did that
Nah.
how did that come about? And what was the emotions going into that?
Yeah, definitely not on the radar. And I mean, we've had some pretty audacious goals when it comes to the podcast of who we want to speak to
Mhm.
and get on the show. But I would say a lot of those folks are still a ways off because I think we still have a lot of growing to do. But to be able to speak to Simone now was really like a dream come true. Being able to sit down with her, get to know her as a person, get to know her family, her fiance. It was really a spectacular memory that I'll take with me always. And we're going to get to do even more stuff. We have more stuff coming up with Simone, which I think is going to be even more impactful than the launch stuff. But the way it comes about, again, is networking, talking to people, and not always talking to people when you need something. Like sometimes it's good to check in and see when other people need something because you might be surprised the thing that they need might be something that you need. Reaching out and saying like, "Hey, do you need anything?" Like, "Hey, I got this incredible opportunity. Do you want it?" Absolutely. It's those scenarios where it's like the preparation and the networking and the not always thinking about yourself really can lend itself to fortune
Mhm.
in your favor.
Definitely. So let's talk about that vision, man. Because I know you can't share all the stuff that you got on the pipe coming with Simone and all those
Right.
different pieces, but you talked about the vision of Hacker Valley, and that's what your number one
Hmm.
priority is right now. Talk about it. Like
It
next,
is.
5, 10, 15 years from now, what do you see Hacker Valley expanding to and becoming?
We want it to be the go-to place for edutainment for cybersecurity. So not just a place that you go to learn, because there's some great educational places, not just the place for you to have fun and kick back, because there's other organizations for that. But we want to meet you right in the middle where you can come, you can learn, but it's also fun and enjoyable. There's a certain swag, a flavor to it that you always get when it comes to Hacker Valley anything. We just want to continue to do that. And we want to do that on a much higher level every time we go out and do something. So now we have things like Technically Divided, which is a video series that we put a lot of time and attention into, but we're going to create more content. We might even want to get into a little bit of fiction because you can still learn from fiction, but you have to do it in a way that isn't I guess thoughtless. Don't do it in a way that you have to. Really want to be intentional about all the things that we do. So yeah, I just for that vision, we want to be that go to place for edutainment for cybersecurity.
I love it. So now I got to ask, man. So what pieces are missing on the team? I know everybody's hiring, right? On the back end of
Yeah,
the pandemic, everything's happening. So now you laid out the vision. What are the missing pieces on the team? Are you guys looking for different people that's going to aid in that vision? If so, what are those roles and what are you looking for them to accomplish?
Yeah, so we have a new lead on the marketing side, and we think that marketing is the place that needs a lot of
Mm,
love. There's a lot of love, and there's a lot of time and attention that goes into crafting
mhm,
messaging. So probably additional help on that end. Obviously, we just brought on a whole bunch of help on the operation side.
mhm.
We just brought on an EA to help Ron and myself because if you saw my schedule as it stands today, it's terrible. It's honestly disgusting. But now we're going to be getting much more organized when it comes to our time, which I'm super super excited about. But yeah, it's all about the product and making sure that the people that would love to hear this information or would find value in this information knows that it's here for them, because that's what we do. We do it for the listener. We do it for the folks out there that were where we were, 10, 15, 20 years ago, just kind of figuring this space out, figuring out life, and hopefully we could give them a little bit of life and a little bit of cybersecurity all at the same time.
I love it because what you just mentioned, I feel like it's a lot of what a lot of podcasters go through, right? Like at the end of the day, the reason why shows aren't quote unquote successful is because there's no exposure. People don't know they
Hmm.
exist, right? And marketing
Right.
plays a huge role in trying to help figure that out and kind of figure those things out. So if you're in marketing, you're listening to this right now. I don't know, maybe Hacker Valley may have some positions open, so you might want to reach out, go to the page, whatever else it may be.
There, there you go.
All right, Chris. Couple more questions before we wrap this thing up, my man. I'm just curious. How does somebody become? Because obviously, I'm a huge fan of what you guys do at Hacker Valley. I think you guys have an incredible fan base now at this point, as far as people that are really getting valuable content and just buying into the vision itself. Curious from you, man. Like, how can somebody become a part of supporting it, whether that be through a sponsor, right,
Mhm.
or whether it's through merch? How can people find out about those pieces of Hacker Valley to add that kind of flair to it?
Yeah, our home base is hackervalley.com. Everything that you could think of is there, from merch to figuring out how to team with us for sponsorships, see upcoming stuff that we have in the pipe. That's really like our home base. Another way to really get in touch with us, we tend to live on LinkedIn quite a bit. So please feel free to reach out and drop us a message. I can't always get to all the messages that I receive, but if you let us know that it's from this particular podcast, we'll do our best to reach back out and say hello and be sure that we connect. But yeah, hackervalley.com is the main place to do that and hang out with us. And we also have a Discord that you can get to through hackervalley.com/Discord. That's where we hang out. We're there every single day. We'll say good morning. We'll talk to you if you have things that you're working on, whether it's projects in cybersecurity and content. Everyone's there and always willing to help. So those are a few places to catch us.
Absolutely. And I'll put links to everything that Chris just mentioned inside the show note, guys. But I do want to say that the Discord is absolutely fire. So I've been putting off getting in the Discord for forever. And it was actually right after the Simone Biles live showing on LinkedIn and YouTube and everything else that you guys put the link, was like, hey, let's do the after party over in Discord. And I was like, I mean, I
Right.
want to be a part of it, but I ain't never been on Discord before, dog. Like, I don't really know what's
Yeah.
going on here. But I jumped in and immediately it was
Yeah.
just like open arms. It was so exciting. There was a lot of stuff that was happening already. The chat was blowing up. But even since then, although that's how I kind of got into the Discord itself, even since then, the
Hmm.
value, the questions that's asked, and then like the amount of experience and wisdom and expertise that of all the different people that you've communicated or accumulated inside of this community now, I think is second to none, man. I feel like having those people at your fingertips to be able to ask questions and get things out of that, I think that's cool. So that was not a. I promise you, Chris didn't pay me to do that. That was literally just a personal,
Right. Yeah.
personal experience
Yeah.
from Eddie Thomason. Okay,
No,
so
I appreciate that. It means a lot. It really does.
absolutely. So I know you already said that we can get a hold of you on LinkedIn and those different individual places with your Discord. And like I said, I'll put those links in the chat. I'm sorry, I'll put those links in the description. But let us know, is there anything you want to wrap up with before we sign this thing off? Any last piece of wisdom, advice that you want to let people know before we sign you out?
Just take care of each other. It's a hard world out there. Let's band together. Help each other out, give each other wisdom, knowledge, encouragement, or just validation. And, I think this place will be a lot better. It's easy to get caught up in yourself, but when you start looking out for others, others will definitely start looking out for you.
Mhm. I love it. Well, there you have it, guys. That's another incredible episode. Chris Cochran dropping all kinds of gems, wisdoms, everything that you can think of when it comes to cybersecurity, when it comes to leadership, when it comes to vision. Okay. So if you enjoyed the show, make sure you go ahead down below and follow some of those links that's inside of the description in itself. And we look forward to seeing you guys again on the next one. Deuces.
Appreciate you, Eddie.